Inside, the lights are low. This isn't your typical lounge. This is where the forgotten tales gather, where the shadows have their say. We'll talk of monsters in the woods, of killers with a motive and lights in the sky, and ghosts in the attic. Come into the waiting room, please.
Well, you've probably seen them on Ancient Aliens. You've probably seen them on History's Greatest Mysteries, or you may have seen them on William Shatner's The Unexplained. We got Tim the Man, Tim Swartz. Welcome, Tim.
Hey, thank you.
And you know, when I was a little boy, I used to sit in front of my TV and used to watch a TV show called Mr. Ed. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, of course.
All right. Well, I guess we're kind of telling our age here. Phil, Zandine, Stacy, you know who Mr. Ed is?
The famous Mr. Ed, the horse.
Yeah, the talking horse.
Famous Mr. Ed.
And he would only talk to Wilbur Post.
Yep.
And
Right.
it used to really frustrate Wilbur because he wanted other people to witness it. There was Francis the Talking Mule. I used to watch those movies, and I used to go, wow, man, it would be so cool if my dog Pierre, which was a gray poodle, if he could actually talk to me. And then, then I started getting into animations like Scooby-Doo, Remy the Rat, Poe from Kung Fu Panda, Donkey and Shrek, and Bugs Bunny. These were talking animals, and I wish it was true. I was a little boy, and I always wish there was an animal that can actually talk. But
Paul was a little boy when Shrek came out. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I found out I think it was I was reading a Brad Steiger book. Tim's got a book on Jeff the Talking Mongoose, but I think it was Brad Steiger that introduced me through one of his books about Jeff the Talking Mongoose, and I was really fascinated with the story. And I was wondering, is this story really true? So we're going to find out tonight, maybe. So, Tim, you got that book out. It's called Jeff the Talking Mongoose. What's it all about?
Well, I want to add to the collection of talking animals in pop culture and media with and I can't remember the name of the frog, but there's the Warner Brothers cartoon where the construction worker finds the frog that can sing and dance, but every time he puts it like on stage to make money from it, it just croaks at him. He's the only one who can hear it singing and dancing. And that's kind of like the way it was with Jeff,
Yeah. And of course, the Muppet Puppets say have Hermit the Frog.
That's right.
Sure, that cartoon that you're talking about, Tim, I can picture that.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Yeah. Was it like Bugs Bunny cartoon or?
Well, it was from the same studio. It was Warner Brothers.
Okay.
And I think it was either Chuck Jones or Fritz Freeling was the director of that particular one. But yeah, the frog would be like singing, hello, my baby, hello, my darling. And, the construction worker kept seeing like dollar signs in front of his eyes, but the frog would never perform for anybody else. So
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the great thing about that cartoon is that he put the frog back in its box and then put it inside the cornerstone of a building. And then in some far future date, I think maybe it was like 2000, according to the cartoon, somebody else digs him out and then the whole process starts all over again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I've been kind of waiting for Jeff to reappear somewhere and repeat his shtick all over again.
Well, I've never heard of him.
Maybe it's another animal, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, Tim, Yeah, we were talking offline, and Stacy says she's never heard of Jeff the
I've never heard of this, so
This
I
is
need some
fascinating.
backstory here, Tim.
Get ready.
Well, the first I ever heard of it, and this was a number of years ago. I mean, I was still um, probably maybe in middle school. Was it was a reissued book from Nandor Fordor. He was a psychic investigator and a ghost hunter, especially in the early 20th century. And it was a paperback book of one of his older books, maybe maybe a combination of a couple of his books. And he had a lengthy chapter about Jeff because Fordor was around when Jeff was active and had petitioned the Irvings and Jeff himself with letters and bribes of food, of bacon and chocolate, for Jeff to allow Fordor to come and visit and for Jeff to make an appearance. Because Jeff always had this tendency that when investigators would come to the house, he would disappear and refuse to talk. And there was only a few people that would come to visit that Jeff actually regaled them, with his presence. Everybody else he was very suspicious of.
Okay, so did he belong to somebody? Was he out in the wild in a certain area?
Okay.
What do you mean when they?
This took place on the Isle of Man in the early 1930s, and it started with a family called the Irvings. Now, this was an older couple and their younger daughter. The father, Jim Irving, was a piano salesman and had done very well for himself. And with the money that he had made when he retired, he bought this plot of land on the island, and they were from England. And his idea was that he was going to be a gentleman farmer. That's somebody who, I mean, they took care of the finances, but then hired people, did all the work on the farm. But unfortunately, the farm did not end up being that great to begin with. They found this plot of land that had a very old house on it made of stone, and Jim went about renovating it. In the process, he put wood paneling on the interior portion of the house, and left a gap of about 4 inches between the stone walls of the house and the wood paneling to act as kind of like a natural insulation, because the Isle of Man is well known for not being the most hospitable environment on the planet.
Okay.
So after they were there a couple of years, Jim would later tell psychic investigators that he saw a couple of times a small animal of some kind that he really couldn't identify. He couldn't tell maybe if it was a polecat or a weasel or whatever, but he shot at it because he had livestock and didn't want something, establishing itself. But then later, they got the idea that whatever this thing was had moved inside the house, because they started hearing noises in the walls, like something scrabbling around. So at first they laid out traps, and that didn't work. And then after a while, they just kind of gave up. And then this thing started making animal noise, growling like a dog, or barking like a dog, meowing like a cat. And Jim, just kind of as a joke, started doing the same thing back. If this thing barked, he would bark back. If it meowed, he would meow back. And then it would respond in kind. And after a while, it kind of evolved into making sounds like a baby, baby noises, ba ba ga ga,
wow.
like that. And
Yeah.
and eventually it turned into speech. This thing, whatever it was a fast learner and started to talk. And it obviously had a very high intellect because it learned to talk very quickly, and it was smart. I was trying to think of a good way to put that, but it turned out to be extremely smart. And at one point, it told the Irvings that it had understood human speech for a long time, but Jim was the first one to teach him how to speak. And eventually it identified itself, its name was Jeff, G-E-F, and it was a mongoose. And it said that it was over 100 years old and that it had originally been born in India and then brought to the island maybe about 75 years before by a farmer who was attempting to eradicate the overpopulation of rabbits. But it said while the rest of the other mongoose grew older and died, he didn't, and he remained. And then eventually it's claimed to have moved in with the Irvings, and that is really how it all started. This little creature, allegedly, living in the walls of this house with a very good vocabulary and an almost human-like intelligence, but also exhibiting what you would call traditional poltergeist-type activity. It could move things around. It could squirt water out of various knotholes in the house at people that it didn't like. At least if you were lucky, it was water. Other people that weren't as lucky, it was piss.
And the family actually thought it was guys, right, Tim?
Say that again.
I said the family actually thought it was a poltergeist, correct?
Well, naturally at first they thought it was a ghost. They thought they were being haunted. I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, here's something in the walls of your house that you can't see, all right? Because it took a long time before it even revealed little tiny parts of itself. So they thought they had a ghost. Let me take that back. At first, they weren't sure. And in fact, Jim attempted again to trap it or to shoot it, and which really pissed it off even more. And it threatened to harm the family. Jeff said that if he wanted to, he could kill all of them. And they could do nothing about it. So eventually they just kind of, declared a truce and got to be friends. But yeah, at first they thought that they were dealing with a ghost. And in fact, it's funny because later Jeff would tell them that he was afraid of ghosts. So if he was a ghost, he was a self-loathing ghost.
Almost sounds like a demon.
Right?
Well, because I don't know, if you watch enough of the Conjuring movies, they always talk about it's not really a ghost, it's actually a demon that's, inhabiting the doll or inhabiting a mirror or whatever the thing is. And the fact that it would steal the identity of, what's obviously an influence from Ricky Tikki Tavi. Otherwise, nobody from England would even know what a mongoose was without Ricky.
Yeah, that's right.
Which was 1894, which was 40 years before this happened. So if it was anything, it could have been a demon, especially the fact that it would threaten the family and said, I have the ability to kill everybody in there. No mongoose on earth, even if it could talk, has a chance against a human being. So
That's right.
this had to be one hell of a mongoose or a demon.
I'll kill you.
Right.
Well, we darn sure know it wasn't a pissing ghost.
Well, the Irvings actually, I think you brought in a paranormal investigator, Harry Price, I believe.
Yeah, well, after a while, they tried to keep it secret, but I mean, it's a small island, and word got around really fast, that there was a spook um, at the uh, um, uh, at the Irving's place. And in fact, it was called the Dalby Spook. And then after a while, it made it into the newspapers and spread all across Europe. I mean, it was a big sensation, naturally in England, but even newspapers in the United States
Wow.
covered it through wire services. Um, so yeah, eventually it got the attention of paranormal investigators like Harry Price, who was probably the most well known investigator, at the time. He had researched a number of very famous haunting cases, looked into spirit mediums, things like that. At first, though, Price was not able to make the journey from London to the Irving's place across um, you know, to the island. So he sent various friends over to try to establish what was going on. Most of them were not able to experience the joy of Jeff, but a couple who were somewhat persistent and open-minded to what was going on, actually heard him and witnessed his antics, though
Right.
nobody else, with the exception of the Irvings, ever physically saw him um, in full form.
Wow.
Some people saw his front paws, which didn't look natural. They looked more, I suppose, more like they didn't look like a mongoose paws. They looked more human almost, or maybe I suppose maybe like a raccoon or something like that. So maybe maybe Jeff was actually a raccoon disguised as a
Tim,
mongoose.
Tim, Tim, you bring up a good point, Tim, because I want to ask you this, as I know you're the expert on that. Like, what sayest thou to these spelunker debunkers that say the daughter was faking the whole thing herself, and that she knew sign language, or she was a musician, all the stuff they were saying about how they were had stuff hooked up in the walls? And what did you feel when you heard when they were saying that type of stuff? Because it sounds like it's more involved than just like being able to fake it like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they wouldn't have had anything hooked up in the walls because there was no electricity there. No electricity, no telephones, nothing. I mean, the lighting was through, lanterns, candles, fireplace, things like that. I mean, they were out in the sticks with their farm. Now, the island did have electricity, but it hadn't made it out to, where the Irvings were yet.
Yeah.
So, they couldn't have had, anything like that. Now, as for the daughter, her name was Vori. And by the time that all this really started to ramp up, she was about 13 years old, which really is, I mean, that is the age when a lot of poltergeist activity can happen. Yeah, I mean, like other haunting poltergeist cases that involve teenagers, the blame almost inevitably ends up on the kid. And that's the way it was with Vori. Naturally, people suspected that she was faking it somehow, or maybe it was a combination. It was thought between Vori and her mother.
You're the ventriloquist, right?
Well, that's what
That's
the
what they
accusation.
said.
That's
Yeah.
what they said. Yeah, at that time, and you remember this was the early 1930s. It was still thought by people who weren't actual ventriloquists that you could actually throw your voice, that
I don't
you
actually
could
believe
make.
in ventriloquism. I have never really experienced like I mean I see people do it, but to me it never seemed like you could really. It just seemed like moving a mouse. So I don't think
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
well it's just a matter of distraction, of detraction. That's why you've got the ventriloquist dummy. Everybody's looking at it and not paying attention to you moving your mouth. But people then thought that you could actually throw your voice so that it
Yeah.
sounded, so that it was coming out of a closet or a wastebasket or the walls
Mhm.
of your house. And but and like I said, there was the accusation also that maybe her mother was involved, that they were unhappy living on the island, and that they were trying to scare their dad, or husband and dad, into giving up the farm and moving back to England.
Hmm. So they
But
never
if
made any money off of it.
Oh no, no. Well, I mean,
Right.
no.
Okay.
No.
There
Well,
really wouldn't have been.
just
It would
trying
have
to
been
think.
really hard to try to monetize, something like that. Back in the 30s, Harry Price would later write a book about Jeff, but it was only about 500 print circulation of that book, and it didn't sell very well. And the Irvings didn't get any cut from it. So
Okay.
no, I mean this was not an attempt to make money.
Right.
And
Was there
like
was
I
there ra- was there radio in England back then? Did they
oh
receive any
yeah.
type of were they? I know they were known on the island that they lived on, but did this story get out of the Isle of Man, and did it become like was it in newspapers in England? Was it well known at the
Yes.
time that it was happening?
Yes, yes, yes. It was big news, all across England and the continent, and like I said earlier, some wire services in the United States even carried it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I mean it was covered extensively, and a number of reporters and gawkers, went to the island in an attempt to see Jeff and have a conversation with him. Um,
Exactly.
the Irving's neighbors pretty much all vouched for them, and a number of them actually heard Jeff themselves. They would say that he was so loud that he could be heard from outside the house. So I mean, if you're standing
Oh.
around visiting outside the house and Jeff was in one of his moods, because he would at times have a temper and would and basically have temper tantrums and scream and curse and have very colorful language. People who heard him said that his voice was extremely shrill and high pitched, kind of like what you would expect the voice of a little animal to sound like, except
Huh.
that he could be extremely loud, probably much louder than a normal physical creature could
Right.
be. Yeah.
Okay. So that brings us to the guy who's trying to bribe. What'd you say his name was? The one that was trying to get to go see him?
Well, Harry Price he wasn't trying to bribe. He just, it cost a bit, to take that trip from London to the Isle of Man. So it took him a while to get funding for the gosh, I can't remember. I can't remember what it recalls. There was a big paranormal group located in London at that time. It was like the physical research group, LTD, or something along those lines. But they were able to get up enough funds that that Harry and another one of his associates were able to go and visit. But Jeff refused to make an appearance, and in fact he said that these people were doubters, and there would be no way that he would go and talk with doubters, and then would make a and then just disappear. He wouldn't talk to anybody. He would go away and not come back again until people had left. So I mean, he was so naturally, it's going to be assumed that this was some kind of hoax, because people showing up who were trained to look for this kind of stuff, and then Jeff won't make an appearance. So yeah, you're going to start thinking these people are trying to pull a fast one on us.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was part of the frustration of trying to investigate this case, because you did have some of these investigators, actually managed to talk to Jeff, see some of the physical things that he could do, and but then that's once again that's your word against everything else. I mean, and even if you are a friend of Harry Price and went there to try to get some kind of response and get it, you still come back with nothing. And that is the frustrating part about the Jeff case, with the exception of a series of photographs that Vori was able to take from a camera that Harry Price had given her to do such a thing. Nobody had ever really had even seen Jeff. And if you go online, or better yet, buy my book and and look at the illustrations, you can see the photographs that Vori was able to take of Jeff. And Jeff had told her, he says, "Okay, I'm going to run across this gate, this outdoor fence gate, and you better be quick." And a lot of times she missed him, but she was able to get, I think, like, three photographs of him.
Wow. Okay.
Tim, besides Harry Price, the Society for Psychological Research in England, weren't they involved too?
That was the organization that Price was affiliated with.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Are these pictures in your book?
Yes, they are.
Awesome.
Yep.
Do they look like a mongoose?
I'm sorry?
Do they look like a mongoose?
To me, they look more like a stuffed toy that's been placed on this gate. But the thing about it is that the pictures are somewhat. Let me rephrase this. The pictures of the gate and the surroundings are in focus, but Jeff is somewhat out of focus, and the explanation is that he was moving when she took the pictures, and it looks like it. It kind of looks like that. Whatever it was, was running across the top of this gate.
Is the house still standing?
No. The house is no longer there. I'm not even sure if anybody owns the property or if it's back to the island's trustees, but I'm sure that at this point somebody owns it. The thing about the house is that there were indications that it had been there a lot longer than it was thought. The house was pretty old, probably had been built maybe in the 1600s, but there were indications that there may have been prehistoric structures in that vicinity as well. Remnants of megalithic structures, like Stonehenge, standing stones, and things like that. The Isle of Man has them in several locations. And in fact, what was it? It was some pottery, possibly Celtic in origin, had been uncovered along a fence row on the edge of the property, which some people had speculated later that Jeff was some kind of imp that had been contained in this pottery, and then when they dug it up, they set him free.
That could be. Those are horrible little things.
Mm-hmm. Well, in my book, and we had people like Paul contribute some of their ideas to it. But one of the things that I kept circling back on, besides the obvious poltergeist and haunting ideas, was that Jeff could have been what was known as a spirit of the hearth. And it was thought that your household could have a brownie, or not so much of a fairy, but something along those lines that lived in your hearth, and because that was the center of your household, and that if you took care of it, it would take care of you. And in fact, a lot of the things that Jeff supposedly did were very similar to the old myths of what your house imp would do. Jeff would, when the Irvings were suffering from financial difficulty, and they frequently did, he would actually catch rabbits and kill them, and then leave them on their porch for them to have for dinner.
Oh, well, that's nice.
In fact, he would announce after, he would say, "Got you a rabbit," and then they would find, these dead rabbits on their porch.
Yeah, can I stop you for a minute?
Absolutely.
We're at about 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So, and everything's going to shut down. So we're going to send a second link. We're going to take a 10-minute break, send you a second link, and finish up this interview. So we now have 2 minutes. Okay, so anyone has a good mongoose joke?
Yeah, well, you got two mongoose walk into a bar, and
I just heard one the other day. It was no.
It's that bad, huh, Stacey?
That's right.
I got a lot of good jokes, but they're bad. They're bad.
Yeah, I know. Mine consist of dirty jokes that my uncle tells over and over again, because that's, he every once in a while he'll hear a new one that he'll tell me. He used to hear a lot of new ones when he was working, but after retirement, it was just recycling the same ones over and over again.
Those are the best ones.
Yeah, right, because you forget that you've heard them like 12 times prior to that. You're like, "Oh, do you remember? Or have you heard this one?" And then he'll tell it, and I was like, "I totally forgot all about that one. Yeah, that's good."
I used to have a lot of jokes when I was in the Army. In the Army, they tell you a lot of jokes.
Yeah. I used to have a lot of jokes when I was younger too, and I can't remember a single one of them. I can tell you about the old lady with angina, though. But we don't have enough time for that one right now.
No, 25 seconds. Okay, 10-minute break. Smoke them if you got them.
All right, we'll see you soon.
No.
What? All right,
Don't
where are we
don't
going?
leave.
Yeah, the audio is a little sketchy.
4, 3, 2, 1. All right, Tim, take us on that journey down the talking animal lane.
Well, I wanted to go back because Zandine had asked a question about accusations of ventriloquism with Vori, the young daughter. And I think that this is really pertinent to the entire case because at some point years later, a writer for Fate magazine managed to track Vori down. She would have been in her 50s at this point and had moved back to England. And she actually agreed to an interview with him. And she basically said that everything that had been said about Jeff, everything that had happened there on the farm had actually happened. That it was all true. And that she hadn't used ventriloquism. She had no idea how to do ventriloquism. And she told the reporter, she said, if I was that good as a 13-year-old girl at ventriloquism, I would have gone on the stage and eventually gone on to television and
Great point.
and the like. She goes, but no, she said, I didn't know how to do ventriloquism, and even if I did, she said that her parents would have caught her right away. And this was something that I point out in the book, is that the Irvings were no fools, all right? They had already raised 2 other children who at this point were already adults and had families of their own living in England. They didn't move with their parents because they already had their own families, and Vori was kind of a latecomer to the family, kind of like a surprise baby. So the Irvings hadn't just fallen off the turnip truck. If Vori had tried to hoax them with Jeff, more than likely they would have caught on really fast. Go ahead.
No, not to interrupt you, just to chime on what you said. The angle of, if I was going to ask you what was her relationship with her father, and then I was going to say, did she want to cement his legacy? That was the angle. They said, not me, but I was looking at when you said that, maybe it wasn't that she was a ventriloquist to fool them, but more to bolster, or not even ventriloquism, or bolster his story some type of way. I just saw that in one of the writings. I don't feel that way. I was just wondering what you thought about those people that said that.
Oh, well, I am almost positive that probably some of the activity that had been recorded probably did come from her. I mean, you're a young, you're a teenager. While all of this is going on, you're going to do something.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
and blame it on Jeff. And in fact, there were a couple of times. There were a couple of times when she did try to do things like that, but Jeff called her out and told her parents that I didn't do that. That was the girl. The girl did that.
Okay.
So she could, she couldn't have gotten away with it. But as for her relationship with her parents from from what we're able to glean, I mean, she had a good relationship with her parents. There didn't seem, I mean, as good a relationship as a young girl can have with, really almost elderly parents. Uh, you
Yeah,
know,
and then being on an island that
right.
was very small,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there was a lot of freaking boredom going on there. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, she did go to school. I mean, they had a school there that she went to every day, and in fact, the first accusations of her doing ventriloquism came from her classmates, who said that they
Okay.
heard her throwing her voice so that it was coming out of closets and the teacher's desk and things like that. You know. So yeah, I mean, you had that kind of situation going on. But now when she got old enough, now this would have been at the very beginning of what would eventually become World War II. The United States hadn't gotten involved yet, but England certainly was. So when she was old enough, she actually moved to England to work for a wartime factory.
oh,
And she would have been probably around 17 or 18, I think, at the time. But by that point, uh, uh, the phenomena was really starting to wane. Um, uh, Jeff, as I had said earlier, especially when strangers would come by to visit in an attempt to talk to him or see him, would just disappear, and he'd disappear for days at a time. When he would come back, sometimes he would say that he had been out visiting the neighbors, or that he had ridden underneath the bus that went back and forth across the
Wow.
island,
Wow.
and then spent time at the bus station spying on people. That was one of the things that Jeff liked to do, is he liked to gossip. And he would come back to the Irvings with all the news, all the juicy tidbits of what was going on in the various villages around the island. And the neighbors of the Irvings really hated that, naturally, because Jeff would hear really, the private secrets, going on with people, and then go and blab it to everybody.
sounds
So
like a little
yeah,
troublemaker to me. I mean, more and
very,
more, if this
yeah.
actually happened, allegedly happened,
Mhm.
then what Phil said about it being some kind of a demonic, but then also the imp, they're very mischievous. Imps are very mischievous.
Yep.
And so for them to, or they can be very evil, which is kind of a form of demonic, evil spirits, evil creatures, things like that. So it's interesting. The more that you say stuff about it, the more it sounds like more, I don't know.
It sounds
Anyway.
it almost Tim, you know what? I remember last time when you were telling me about it, and I kept thinking, was it supernatural? Just like borderline. But then, like you said, he just other than humans, our species has in all these 200,000 years hasn't deviated like Darwinian. Some of the other creatures may have, evolved, but we sure haven't. So I don't know what the rules are for the mongoose. But board is supernatural, like it almost sounds like. But like you said, and I remember when you first told me about the mongoose was when I asked you. Sorry about that, Paul. When you first when you first told me about the mongoose was when I asked you what part of the paranormal things, what was compelling to you, and so you told me about him. So whatever it was, I was like, well, Tim, that story, resonated like it was true.
And some Zandine, this is going to blow you away. HPI, Halo Paranormal Investigations, our group actually investigated a talking squirrel. And yeah, and I think it was Timothy Beckley that told me that Tim Swartz was writing a book about Jeff the Talking Mongoose.
No, ironic.
I said,
Damn.
oh my God.
That's funny.
HPI.
That's blowing my dome.
Yeah. And this the case was before you joined the group. Stacy was in the group, but I don't know if she was involved. But
No,
I
I
had
wasn't in that one.
I had some paranormal investigators actually checking it out. We didn't find any evidence of a talking squirrel. And this happened in Carmichael, California. And the guy was about my age, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that he took the story of Jeff the Talking Mongoose and made the story up. And he was trying to say that this squirrel, this talking squirrel, was demonic. It was a demonic presence, that it was somehow a demon with the squirrel. And that story, Tim actually placed into his book.
That sounds about right, man. It sounds like like a copycat series, you know. Sounds like he and the thing is, if he's copying, he should know that Jeff doesn't talk unless he wants to. So it's not like an on-demand puppet thing. Yeah.
Right.
How many movies? I know they just made a movie a few years ago about this, but was that the first movie ever made about this story?
That's been the only movie ever made about it. And they definitely, I mean, you know, they took liberties with the plot quite a bit, but they actually did a fairly good job with it.
Is that what it's called? Like Jeff the Talking Mongoose, or what's the movie called?
I think it's just called Jeff, G-E-F.
Yeah.
It's called Nandor Fodor in the talk.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because it was Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg plays Nandor Fodor.
And I'm real surprised that Ed and Lorraine Warren didn't get involved. And,
they did everything else, right?
Well, it wasn't a demon.
They would have, they would have been, God, the 1930s. They would have been pretty young, at the time.
That's not good.
That case might have broke them though. Remember, they got broke by their last case, but but that case might have broke them anyway. So,
well, and you know, and Zed Dean, to address your question, I mean, you can't read about this case and read about all the stuff because Jim Irving kept a daily diary for a couple of years of Jeff's activity. So, I mean, if this was a hoax, they went all out. You know, I mean, because, I mean, you know, Jim would record, like, you know, what the weather was that day, and that Jeff had brought home 2 rabbits and ate some bacon out of the refrigerator, you know, stuff like that. But, you know, you can't read this and not think, excuse me, that there isn't some kind of supernatural aspect involved, whatever the term supernatural means, you know. I will say, though, that at no time really was Jeff anything other than a trickster or mischievous. You know, because you're asking if he could have been a demon or evil or something like that. And unless he was playing a long game that he never finished, there doesn't seem to be any kind of examples of him doing anything remotely demonic or evil. And in fact, you know, I think anymore that demon has become just really a buzzword with a lot of these paranormal investigators, that you know, anything that happens, everything's a demon, right? And as you well know, with poltergeist activity, if you start talking in the house about something being demonic, then you sure as hell gonna find it acting that way. You know, because that's the kind of stuff the poltergeists love to do. But when it came to Jeff, like I said earlier, he claimed to be afraid of ghosts, even though he loved when Jim would tell ghost stories at night to everybody. Jeff would actually ask Jim to tell a good story tonight, like a kid almost,
Wow.
Yeah.
There were a
It
lot
says
of
a lot about his
aspects.
mind. It says a
Yeah,
lot about
whether
his cognitive, like this is the depth. It just says a lot about like wherever he was or how he was developed. Say that the animal species that you would think they can't talk, but they think the same things we do. And then maybe he's like the one that, like you said, the exception. Like that would be incredible.
yeah. Well, I mean, it would sound almost like the plot of a bad movie, but I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility, I suppose, that you have an animal have a mutant of some kind where
Right.
somehow it developed a vocal ability and consciousness enough to articulate itself. But the thing about it is that a mongoose and other animals really don't have the vocal cords or the ability to talk like we do, like people do. And
Right.
Jeff is very articulate and could be understood, even though its voice was high pitched and shrill. But I mean, even our closest hominid relatives, chimpanzees, bonobos, and gorillas, they can't talk. Their vocal cords aren't made for it. They've tried training chimps to talk a little bit, and they're able to say like easy words like mama, papa, things that are done
Right.
more with the lips rather than the vocal cords. But
Yeah, they're better at sign language.
yes, yeah. But Jeff was extremely articulate. So, if he was a mutant of some kind, he would have had to have been a mutant all across the board.
Yeah.
Brain and throat and hands and
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's
but
why it sounds more like like you were saying, and more like an imp. Yeah, with the childlike, the mischievousness, acting, thinking that they have to, be threatening. Oh, I'm gonna kill you and your whole family if you don't let me stay, type thing. But more in a kid type way, it like a kid threatening an adult, say how they do sometimes. So it sounds like that, and staying as live as long as it did.
Yes.
And also, Stacy and Tim, the Isle of Man is very, very, very haunted.
Really?
Peel Castles is on the Isle of Man, and they have a creature over there called a Madu Dahu, which is a spectral black dog. So there we have the
I think
and the black
Well, you know all the creatures, man. You sent me a big giant book on that, man. It's crazy. That's a great story, man.
And then they have the ferry bridge, which has all these ferries seen on the bridge by multiple witnesses. And one more thing, over at St. Trinian's Church, they got the Bogain, which is some kind of orgly like a Shrek.
Oh wow! And this is all on man, huh? All on man island, huh?
That's in the Isle of Man.
I got a theory. I think it was a Siamese cat. Because I swear my mother had a Siamese cat that lived to be 22 years old and it talked. And he used to say my name.
Yeah.
And so on top of that, if it said it was 100 years old, so if you put cat years together by 7,
I'm gonna ask you, Phil. Do you think, is there anything like, the history of Sacramento pretty good? Like in any of your documentaries, did you come across any stories like that of talking animals or anything like that?
No. I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, so there's always the stories about the New Jersey Devil and things like that.
Right.
But,
Right.
No. But
I thank heavens he didn't talk.
I have heard cats. I have heard cats that can sound out words though. So.
Yeah, our cats talk, and sometimes dogs talk too. Dogs will say "I love you." Our cat would say milk and say my name. I
Wow.
always hear mama coming from mine all the dang time. Mom, what? What do you
Then
want?
You can go on.
my grandfather had a parrot that cursed. Sorry,
Oh
Paul.
yeah.
My grandmother bought a parrot for my grandfather for his birthday one year.
Oh no.
And she bought it from the Ocean County Mall in Ocean County, New Jersey, and brought it back home. And the first thing that the bird said was, "Oh, fuck you." And and of course she went back to the pet shop and started cursing these people out. How did this bird learn to curse? And it turned out that the kids who worked in the pet shop taught the bird how to curse. And they were going to give her her money back and take the bird back, but by then she didn't want to give up the bird. So we had a bird that had a real foul, Archie.
And you can go, you can go on YouTube and you see these dogs that actually kind of talk.
Yeah,
What
say
about
I
the-
love you, and yeah.
Is that better than a humping dog? That the dogs your neighbor, your friends get embarrassed by because the dog comes up to you and it's like all over you. So it's like I'd rather talk at least.
Yeah, but no kidding, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we've
Okay, so
we've
Tim,
had
oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say we've had several cats, that would say like, hello, hello is a popular one with our cats. In the middle of the night, you'll hear like, hello. What the hell's that?
That's interesting. What about the ones who actually don't make much of a sound? They seem like mutes, and every now and then they make that they make like these little sounds. That's been kind of on my mind lately because I have one that he just two of them. I came across an older one that doesn't make much noise except for at feeding time, and if it's and then the hissing, but they make this little like this little, and it's just weird, But they're sweet though. I mean, they're more intuitive. But I think the cats make you almost telepathic because either their body language or like if they want to go outside, eat, get petted, whatever it is. It's like one of them just goes. He goes. And I think, okay, that's nice to go outside. And the other one, he goes.
You know exactly what he's thinking, right? Yeah, but that's just part of being a fur baby parent. We know what our animals, mannerisms and stuff like that are. So we're able to kind of, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'll get it.
Okay, you fill in the blank
Exactly.
kind of fast. But
In the middle of the night, I hear the feral cats that I feed. Okay, are they fighting? Are they having sex? Or did they catch a rat? What is it?
right.
Like all of the above.
All the above.
All of the above. All at the same time. Okay.
Stacey, you were gonna go ahead, Stacey. You were gonna ask a question and I interrupted you.
So whatever happened? What happened to did the story just fizzle out and then nobody knows what happened to Jeff?
Right.
Or what's going on with that?
Yeah, what happened was that, like I'd said earlier, I mean, Jeff would go on these trips, and it just got to the point where the trips would be longer and longer, and his visits back to the farm shorter and shorter. And by the time that Vori had left, Jim was dying from cancer. And Jeff basically just kind of vanished, just faded away, so to speak. One of their older daughters, they had, like I said, they had a boy and a girl that were grown already and had family of their own when the Irvings had moved to the island. Had come to the island to help her mom take care of her dying dad. And even though these siblings did not believe in Jeff or accept what had been going on the farm, they thought that probably Vori, was hoaxing it somehow. Naturally, the much younger sister, you're going to blame them for everything. But this woman did report that she witnessed some poltergeist type activity on the farm while she was there. She saw stuff moving around. stuff would disappear only to reappear someplace else. The typical types of activity, which Jeff would do while he was active, but she never saw him or heard his voice or anything like that. So, I mean, she had to grudgingly accept that something was going on, on the farm. But that's eventually what happened. Jim passed away. Vori had already moved back to England, and then her mother then eventually moved back as well, and abandoned the farm. A couple of years later, the guy who bought the farm bought the farm. No, well, who moved in? He didn't. He didn't buy. He didn't. He had bought the farm. He claimed that he shot a weird little furry animal that was chasing the chickens around, and in fact, I'm pretty sure I have the picture, in the back of the book. Of him, holding up this animal, which looks very much like a skunk or a polecat, as they call it, and much too big to be Jeff. But all the newspapers ran with it that Jeff had been killed. That this farmer had shot him, and finally ended the mystery. But if you look at this picture, and it's a picture that was taken from one of the newspapers. At the time, it looks pretty much like a big skunk.
Yeah, exactly.
Did he speak of love?
Yeah, not Jeff.
Did Jeff ever speak of love?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, he said that he loved the Irvings. He loved them. He loved them all. He told them at one point that he wouldn't have hung out with them if he didn't have an affection for them. And like I said, he took care of them as long as they took care of him. Again, see, we're back to these old mythologies of your house spirits, that as long as you if you take care of them, leave them some milk or rice pudding, or bacon and chocolate. That's what Jeff liked. Then he would take care of you back. Yeah. And for a while he was there, that seems to have been what worked for them. They took care of him. He took care of them.
All right. So now I want a consensus. Tim, what do you think? Do you believe it?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't there. We're basing all this on newspaper reports, the reports of the people who actually experienced it, taken from Jim's diary. Other investigators, they seem to be convinced that there was something real going on. So, based on what everybody else was saying, I do think that there was something going on there. What it was, I don't know. And I have to say that I always tell everyone I don't believe in anything. I do not go and form belief systems, because that kind of closes you down then to new evidence coming in. And I always want to, have myself available, because even though I love the story about Jeff, if somebody were to go back and dig up the place and find that it had been ridden with speaker wires and stuff like that, then I would say, well, that could be, a very good explanation for what was going on. Right. Never leave out any kind of possibilities. But yeah, I do think that there was something very unusual going on there.
Yeah. Well, I believe it. I believe that, that stuff happens. The things that they have in other areas of the world, aside from the United States, are so much different. And unless you read up on them and know what's going on, then it's hard to form for us people back in the States. Like, I'm sure when they got the telegraphs and put it in the newspapers back here in America, people were like, well, these freaking people are crazy. And that would never happen. And because, even back then, people didn't really talk about Bigfoot or ghosts, or we never talked about stuff like that. We never passed that kind of stuff down to each other. Witches were being burned at the stake, type thing. But so to us back here at the States, it's more of a, oh well, that's a cool little made up story. How fun is this cool little made up story? But to them, go
I
ahead.
think that kind of depends, Stacy. I mean, for one thing, at least the original 13 colonies started out as British colonies. So whether we like it or not, most of us are descendants from England. And
Yeah.
my grandfather's name was Kingsland, and you can't get much more British than that. So I
Yeah,
grew
no,
up-
not at all.
grew up with all sorts of ghost stories. We went to to Nutley, New Jersey, to the Kingsland Manor as kids and all that type of stuff. So I mean,
Oh
and
wow, how
on top of that, the 1930s there was a rash of Jersey Devil sightings throughout the Garden State.
Yeah.
So I believe that this is exactly the kind of thing that people would have eaten up, especially you're talking
You
about the
think so?
height. The height of spiritualism, right? So spiritualism came from the late
Oh,
1800s,
yeah.
well into the 1930s. Harry
Yeah.
Houdini was a debunker, all that type of stuff. And this was about the time when radio was just coming in. It was during the burgeoning hyper-electric movement in the United States, but not there in the island of Man. And you're talking about a time period where, and then a location where, like Tim was saying, you had nothing to do but read. There was no other form of entertainment or sit around and listen to dad's ghost stories at night. So
Right.
this would have been a wonderful thing as a little kid to hear, oh, Mom, can you read the story in the newspaper about the talking mongoose? I could see this being very popular back then.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. Yeah. The timing's perfect. Yep. You are correct.
You know what?
It was
sorry,
such
Tim,
it was such a unique case though that
Yeah.
it's no wonder that it's kind of disappeared from everyone's memory, because I mean in my research for the book I have never run across another case similar to Jeff's. All kinds of poltergeists and talking poltergeists and things like that. None of them ever claimed to be, like an animal and exhibit physical characteristics like Jeff did, as well as, paranormal characteristic. It's very unique, such a unique case.
The Irish have their stories about the banshee, and and the leprechauns. And Stacy was talking about imps and all sorts of things like this. So the British Isles are rife with this type of thing.
Yeah.
You're right. The idea of a talking mongoose, specifying that that's what it is, and it came there from India from years earlier, and just happened to just like the climate, I guess. Let's go from hot India to cold ass Isle of Man, and I dig it here. I'm gonna hang out. It's funny. It's a great story, and I think it's a part of the long tradition of folklore that the British Isles are known for. I dig it.
Well, Phil, you bring up a point. It's like if people have these stories, just like nowadays you have millions of or billions of cell phones, and people are catching pictures of different things that we probably never, you could say, hey, is it AI? Only so much of it could be AI, like not 100%. So if you think that a story like Jeff, in that time, super rare, and even now proven to be more rare, but at the same time, you could see that could just be, part of the glitch in the matrix, something that just, is he's an overperformer, or just something that exists, but we're just not catching up to that part of our reality. Maybe just because sounds to me like it really, from what Tim was saying, the different things, they didn't make any money off of it. They chronologued it. If she was a ventriloquist, it would have been like, she would have been better than that guy that does Bugs Bunny, and all of that. What's the Mel Blanc, whatever his name was. She would have been just as rich as that guy. So, there's a lot of reasons that it wouldn't be something like that. So, perhaps Jeff was one of those creatures that, was super normal,
Or they could have been seeking fame.
What do you
Well,
think, Paul?
yeah, they could have, but I mean, it doesn't sound like they really got like tons of fame for, yeah. They didn't go on radio programs or
It was
anything.
very well recognized. It was
Well, it was
very well
recognized, but didn't he, Tim, didn't you say that they didn't really, he was trying to keep it a secret at first?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely kept keeping it a secret, but word got out, and once it got out, you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah, but they didn't go on
And,
circuit like David Wilcox and them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean there was no money to be made off of this, and there was never any attempt by the Irvings to try to profit off of it.
Right, or to reach out for the celebrity status of it. And it sounds
Right.
like the daughter was getting harassed at school and made
Oh,
fun
she
of
was,
and
yeah.
everything.
Oh, yeah. Well, I
Um,
mean, just think about it. I mean, just under normal circumstances, you think how cruel that kids can be
Right.
to each other, and now you have somebody who's got a spook in your house.
yeah.
That and that's what she said in her interview when she was an adult. She said that she never got married because she was afraid that nobody would want to marry her because of her reputation. That
Aw.
nobody would want to be involved with the girl with the Dalby spook, because that name kind of became her name as well. The Dalby spook was referred to in the newspapers as just the overall Jeff phenomena, but then her friends or schoolmates called her the Dalby spook. So yeah, she said that Jeff ruined her life, and that she was
Yeah,
happy to
horrible.
grow up and to get away from him.
And,
Bet.
and that kind of happened with the Enfield poltergeist case with the little girls going to school
Yeah.
and they were
Yeah.
picked on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because everybody was saying that those pictures were faked and stuff, and some of them could have been, and I could see where they were coming from on a lot of that stuff. But
Mm.
yeah,
Like,
when
like her jumping off the bed.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
stuff.
she jumped off the bed.
Yeah, exactly. But for little kids to lie about this poor little 13-year-old girl saying, "Oh well, nah, she used to throw her voiceover into trash cans and teachers' desks." That's just mean and cruel.
Yeah.
Hey Tim, where can we get your book? We're about a minute and a half until this thing wraps up. So can you
Sure,
tell
yeah,
us where
it's
to get your book?
absolutely. It's available on Amazon.com. Just type in my name, Tim R. Swartz, and it should pop up with all of my other books. And its title is called Jeff the Talking Mongoose, the Eighth Wonder of the World. That's what he referred to himself as. At one point he said that he was the eighth wonder of the world.
And I got Tim's book back there.
Oh, do you?
Yep.
Why is it on your wall?
No. It's on the shelf. It's on the shelf.
Oh, look, we should put it up to the camera next time. Pete.
Thank
And
you,
it's
Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate your time again tonight.
Yeah, Tim,
Always
we
a pleasure
appreciate
to have
it.
you on the show.
hey, my
thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
That was so awesome.
I was jacked. I thought you came last week, and he was like, "No, we got somebody." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Now Stacy knows about Jeff.
I know, right? I didn't know a single thing about that. That was such a cool story. I love little stories like that I've never heard before.
And if you like
know.
more stuff like that, don't forget to like and subscribe, which we never say, but I'm saying it now.
Don't you, bro.
Never
Thank you
never
for-
say that.
Here's a talking chihuahua.
It's
Say,
Jeff.
make money, makes money.
Subscribe, share, and give